In St. Paul, Minnesota, a police body camera captures a canine biting a woman, a canine police dog biting a woman who was taking out the trash. And I want to warn you before we show it to you, it is tough to watch.
Oh, please!
Yep.
Help me!
We're trying to get you off.
Trying to get you, ma'am.
Oh!
Okay.
Oh!
Stand up, stand up.
Stand up, we'll get you some medics.
Stand up.
Oh, what did I do to him?
Nothing.
Ma'am.
It's
You're
not your
in the
fault.
wrong place at the wrong time, ma'am.
Oh.
The woman was bitten in September. The video coming out now was actually released by the victim and her attorney. Desiree Collins, the victim, filing a federal lawsuit against the canine's handler last week, only against that officer. The unit was in the area on that morning looking for a burglar, and according to the lawsuit, Gabe, the dog, ignored the officer's commands to let go. Well, the suit also claims the dog's shock collar was not working properly. Collins is suing for unspecified punitive damages and changes in training. St. Paul police say both Gabe and his handler have been retrained and are back on duty. Joining me now on the phone is retired First Sergeant with the Maryland State Police, Eric Fogel. Good to have you with us. When you look at this story, what do you think went wrong here?
Well, when I look at this story, first of all, I have to look at several factors. Were they justified in using a police dog in this situation? Being that it's a burglary, the answer to that question is absolutely. When you have a suspect, a felonious suspect, something like that, so you're justified in using the dog. Now, how you use the dog is based upon several different things, based upon your training, your knowledge and experience, but it also has to be in conformance with the policies and procedures outlined within your agency. With this specific thing, I haven't seen the video. I just read the article. It sounds like, what type of control? Well, to me, it almost sounded like that has no control. However, he does put some control on it because he actually has the dog on a lead.
That lead, though, was 20 feet long. Is that standard? It seems like a really long leash.
That actually would be. If you were conducting a search with a short lead, the effectiveness of the search is greatly reduced. In other words, if the dog is on a 6-foot lead, it's basically right beside you. So having it on a longer lead, it's more effective of a search, or you kind of take the canine out of the equation. Mm-hmm. Now, based upon the control with, your visibility of the dog is what is really contributed to this accident, I would say, is, the unfortunate incident of someone being behind the dumpster at the same time that a canine is searching for two suspects is the unfortunate thing. And I think that's where, it's incumbent upon the officer to use as much due care as he can. But he also, you have to take into account, he also has to weigh that, and is he looking for an armed subject?
Right.
So, if a dog's 6 foot right beside him, it's going to be very ineffective using the dog and to engage a suspect like that.
We reached out to the police department. We still have not heard back, but they did tell our affiliate, WCCO, quote, "What happened to Ms. Collins was a terrible accident that should not have occurred. I'm sorry it happened." This was from the chief, and that she was injured. As a department, we wish we could go back and do things differently. Unfortunately, we can't. We're told that they were retrained. Who is more at fault here, though? Is it the handler or is it the dog?
Based upon this, I don't want to assign fault because I'm not privy to the investigation. I can tell you in Maryland State Police, whenever we had what we called a canine engagement, we would always conduct a commander's review. The canine unit commander would review each time that there was any engagement with the dog, or especially anything arising to injury. And it's also reviewed by the internal affairs unit to make sure that that's done. When we look at all the factors, the justification of even having the dog out, and the justification is, can you engage a suspect with the dog? When you get to where now the dog's out of sight, you have a dog out of sight of you, and then that can come down to, a split second, the handler is working through an alley or something, and next thing you know, comes around a corner, and, unfortunately someone's there when you're searching for a high-risk high-risk suspect. The argument would be, I read in the article that he had no control. I don't buy that he has no control, because one thing, he was able to eventually get the dog off. And the other thing was he did put a control on by having a leash on the dog. People would argue, well, you should have put him on a 6-foot lead. Well, then the dog just becomes ineffective because the dog is
which you explained to us.
that
I think
he's not going to protect you or the public.
Sure. The other thing that's really standing out for people, though, is the fact that the dog didn't respond right away. And then the lawsuit, they're claiming he didn't respond to a shock collar. And the chief is saying, you know, they're at fault there. Eric, really appreciate your insight today. Thank you.
Sure. No problem.